Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Norfa Izatul Jannah from Class E Translation 2. Here I will share and explain what I have got from Translation 2 subject in this semester. So before we study in Translation 2, we have got Translation 1 in the previous semester. There we mostly studied about grammar and introduction to several types of translation in general. Okay, first of all, the definition of translation is a process of translating words or text from one language into another language. Then we dive in kinds and techniques of translation in this semester. There are several techniques in translation such as borrowing, calque, literal translation, and amplification. So first is borrowing. Is a technique of taking words or terms directly from the source language. For example, pure borrowing, for instance, Android, translated to be Android 2, and then software means translated to be software 2. And then the second, nature borrowing. For instance, computers, it means computer in Indonesia. So second, calque is a technique that translates foreign words or phrases into the target language by adjusting the structure of the target language. For example, beautiful girl, it means perempuan cantik atau gadis cantik. And then literal translation is word for word translation. For example, I go to school, it means saya pergi ke sekolah. As simple like that. And then the last is amplification, is a technique that provides detailed explanation of a term in the target language. This technique adds information or explanation to the translated term. For example, Ramadan, the month of fasting for Muslims. After that, we study about translating sociopolitical and human science text. We get many of new vocabularies which we rarely see when we did our assignment to translate the abstract of sociopolitical and human science text. So here's the example. Then we learn about rhyme translation, where rhymes contain the same letter endings as the previous sentence pattern, then translated from Indonesian into English. It takes creativity and the selection of the right vocabulary to fit the given rhyme context. Besides of that, we also learn about translating poems and song lyrics. Here we learn to translate literary text such as poetry, rhymes, poems, songs, etc. It turns out that translating a literary text is not an easy thing. It requires a full understanding of the meaning and choosing the right vocabulary to fit the context. Then the last, we learn about legal documents. Some examples of legal documents are permits, excerpt of birth certificate, excerpt of death certificate, excerpt of marriage, family cards, power of attorney, etc. A lot of new vocabularies are obtained, and we know that there are many special words that are only used for legal documents. Then we continue to join the workshops with PEMA Translation Training Center. First, here we learn to explore the basics of translation such as sentence constituents, affixes, conjunctions, punctuation marks, standardization, sentence effectiveness, and labeling. Second, basic training on CAT tool or computer assisted translation tool. An example of a CAT tool that is often used is SDL Trados. Third is the translation of technical text, some of which are in the use of imperative sentences, nouns or verbs, simplification of words or terms, transfer of conditional clauses, and omission of subjects. So that's all materials that we have studied in translation 2. And then I will do translating descriptive text about Iceman. Iceman. It was late spring or early summer. The man hurried through a forest he knew well, winching from the pain in his injured right hand and pausing occasionally to listen for sounds that he was being pursued. As he fled up the slope, the yellow pollen of the hornbeam blossoms fell like an invisible rain, salting the water and food he consumed when he stopped to rest. 5,000 years later, the Neolithic hunter we call the Iceman would still bear traces of this ancient dusting inside his body. A microscopic record of the time of year it was when he passed through this forest and into the nearby mountains, where fate would finally catch up with him. Saat itu akhir musim semi atau awal musim panas. Pria itu bergegas melewati hutan yang dia kenal dengan baik, meringis kesakitan di tangan kanannya yang terluka, dan sesekali berhenti untuk mendengarkan suara yang dia kejar. Saat dia melarikan diri ke lereng, serbuk sari kuning dari bunga hornbeam jatuh seperti hujan yang tak terlihat, mengasinkan air dan makanan yang dia konsumsi saat dia berhenti untuk beristirahat. 5.000 tahun kemudian, pemburu Neolitik yang kita sebut manusia es masih akan menanggung jejak debu kuno ini di dalam tubuhnya. Catatan mikroskopis tentang tahun ketika dia melewati hutan ini dan ke pegunungan terdekat, di mana takdir akhirnya akan menangkapnya dengan dia. So that's all of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.